Welcome to Realms Unknown, a sci-fi and fantasy podcast brought to you by The Bugle. Even I sometimes sleep well at night. It's a hard thing to confess, heavy is the head and all that, and I claimed this heavy crown atop a mountain of bodies. Nobody tells you how much they squelch. Sure, sometimes I lie deep in the dark of the night staring at a ceiling imprinted with the face of a screaming enemy in the moment I stole their life. Sometimes I sit bolt upright, riven by guilt or dread, the creeping paranoia of knowing I stole this throne, this name, this life. I stole and lied and killed, and I have committed myself to stealing and lying and killing every day from now to keep everything I've earned. The alternative can only be Realms Unknown! Yeah, that's right, you've just entered Realms Unknown, a weekly speculative fiction podcast brought to you by The Bugle, in which we discuss science fiction and fantasy. I am your host, published author and comedian Alice Fraser, and my companion on this journey, the Ender Wiggin to my pacifist buggers, the Avalon to my Blake 7, the Anakin Skywalker to my pod racing tournament. It's Tom Neenan.
Hello, thank you. Lovely Blake 7 reference there. Always a treat to get a Blake 7 reference.
Well, our subgenre deep dive for the day, as you may be suspecting, is villains as heroes. The ways in which sometimes a hero can be a villain or a villain can be a hero, and science fiction and fantasy can play with that. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to subscribe to the Bugle channel, and all of the books that are covered here will be linked in our affiliate store. Look in the show notes for that link. Tom Neenan, what have you been putting in your brain of late?
Partly inspiring this subgenre deep dive, I have just seen the Predator Badlands, which I very much enjoyed. It is an intriguing prospect because, as with a lot of things, a lot of different genres, a lot of things start off as like an 18, sort of for adults, your Terminators, your Aliens, those kind of things. And then as things slowly evolve, they become more in need of a wider audience in order to earn their money back. So you can see why certain franchises need to maybe not be lean so much towards just being for adults, but need to broaden their horizons. You know, the Terminator film, I think now they average about sort of in the UK a 12A, probably a PG-13 in the US. So we've seen kind of a softening of those. And I think that Predator Badlands is maybe the most recent good example of that, because what I think they've done is they've taken the idea of the Predator, and if I'm honest, it's almost like it's been given like a Pixar makeover. Like there's literally a cute, big-eyed best friend character in this new film, which I think might anger purists, but I had a lot of fun with it. I still think that there should be a space for a more bloodthirsty. I think obviously this is the same director who directed Prey, which I really enjoyed, which was the Predator chasing a First Nations woman. And what's brilliant about that is you're pitting someone with sort of, there's no machine guns, there's no, it's all basically about wits. It's about using your wits in your environments in order to outwit this very powerful creature. And this one sort of takes on the same thing, but because there's no humans in it, because it's just synthetic creatures and aliens that bleed green blood, you can make it more family friendly, because you can have things bleed green, and that is, the censors won't then make that, sort of punish you for it.
The old period advertisement using blue blood.
Exactly that.
Get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Generation of young men that thought women bleed blue.
Only the Queen, that's what we know. But yeah, it's very I liked it. I think it's inventive, and it's quite silly, but it sort of wears its silliness on its sleeve, and there's barely any dialogue in it. Elle Fanning's very good. I had a really good time with this. I still think that we should make space for more adult aspects of the genre. For instance, I really liked Alien Earth that we've discussed on this podcast before, but I don't mind having properties, IPs, that kind of thing, sci-fi, fantasy, that can attract a large family-friendly audience and then maybe go a bit more niche and a bit darker at other points. We've sort of seen that with Star Wars as well. We sort of had Andor go quite dark, deal with quite adult themes, and then something a bit lighter, like the was it the Bad Batch, or like the Skeleton Crew, and things like that. So I had a good time. I've seen some detractors, and I've seen some people who are a bit like it's a bit too CGI, and it is a bit CGI, but then it's all set on an alien world, and there's not really a lot that we know exists in our world, so it will feel a bit CGI.
Maybe in alien worlds, it looks very unconvincing. Maybe that's what it looks like.
Maybe that is exactly. Maybe there's like a weird something in the atmosphere that makes things look like they're still rendering. But I think that Avatar, I think is meant to be photorealistic, and I still think that it has like a bit of a CGI sheen. But don't you want that? Because CGI artists have worked hard. Anyway, I had a great time, and I would say maybe if you have like kids who are about like 12 and over, it might be a really nice intro to sort of some of the more muscular 80s sci-fi and fantasy stuff that existed. It might be a nice sort of intro to that. So yeah, I had a good time with it. I give it a cautious recommendation.
I like that very much. I'm not going to see it, I don't think, because I've only seen the original Predator. I've not seen any of the Predator sequels or the Predator v Alien or any of that. I feel like it would be all sort
Mm.
of all at sea, and the Predator with a
Hmm.
cute little sidekick. I don't know. It feels like, yeah, very much like, as you say, the Terminator 1 was, R18, and then the next one, the Terminator was a good guy.
Mm.
My putting things in my brain of this week was also thematic because I finally DNF'd Martha Wells's Demon Queen. I did not finish it, which is rare for me. I found that I just
Hmm.
kept feeling like I was not reading it in the right way because I was reading it in bits and pieces, and because it's achronological and the tempo isn't there, it's sort of quite meandering. Queen Demon, even more than the original Demon King or Prince Demon, whatever it was. Um, I found it just I couldn't hook in, and so I think I put it
Hmm.
aside. Not I think I might like it if I had a different approach or a different time, or was it a different phase in my life. I've gone back to reading just a little bit of comfort reading, the Flashman series, which is, so if you don't know Flashman, it's sort of like a grown-up Tom Brown School Days, or maybe a very grown-up do you ever read The Complete Molesworth? Where you have this kind
Oh
of
yes, yeah, yeah.
it feels like a natural extension of this kind of writing of the bully, the coward, the nasty character, but he has this kind of charm, partly by virtue just of you're seeing the world through his perspective. You don't like him, but you enjoy him.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that counts as fantasy, but yeah, why not? I feel like it's definitely in the realms of it's definitely something bordering on historical fiction slash fantasy.
Mm.
So I've been reading a little bit of that and enjoying it very much.
Nice. It's interesting you say DNF. With books, I never feel like I've not finished them. I just feel like they're all on pause. Like I've got, there's a number of books that I sort of have never finished, but I would never sort of go, I have not finished this book. I would just be like, I am on the way to finishing that book, and if death gets in the way before that happens, then so be it. But I always have the intention of finishing. But is this one where you sort of go, I don't think this is for me, and I don't think I'll continue?
I think I'm gonna put that aside until I'm out of this current phase of life, and it feels odd to me because I do feel like if I were in the right place, I could enjoy it, but it has made
Hmm.
me a little bit more forgiving of I've always been a little bit dismissive of people who are like, "I need to know exactly what this book is going to be before I read it." I don't really love people who are like,
Hmm.
"List the tropes, list," it's like enemies to lovers. I need to know it. It's that very sort of slightly fan fictiony thing of like listing the things that you want and knowing exactly what you're going to get, or getting exactly the kind of content warnings and trigger warnings and everything up front. I've never been, I've always sort of been a little bit more of the school of like, you come to the text and then you can take what you like from it, rather than you
Yeah.
decide exactly, that kind of audience control of the material, the entitlement to that. I've always slightly rejected. But I think at this phase of my life,
Hmm.
sometimes the only time I have to read is after my children have gone to sleep and I'm very tired and I don't necessarily want a challenge. Um, And that is a new thing for me because I enjoy a challenge. Often I will read outside of my genres, or I'll read outside of what I'm familiar with, purely for the joy of kind of being like, well, what's the language of this genre, or
Yes.
what are the reference points? So yeah, I feel a little bit defeated by Queen Demon, but I think I will come back to it in like
Mhm.
2 to 4 years when I have a little bit more brain space, and then I will enjoy it for what it is.
That's interesting. Can I I'll add another. I've just realised I've got probably another what I've been putting in my mind this week, and it sort of relates to what you were talking about as well, because I can absolutely understand why various shows and various things which play with genre can, you might want to know exactly what you get into. For instance, as well, I always think about if you have certain sort of fresh triggers and things, and it might be that if you do like sci-fi and fantasy, but you just want to know that something isn't lurking around the corner that's going to make you have a sort of very negative reaction. I think we should welcome art giving us, not always making us feel amazing, but like there are some things that you just sort of think, if something's fresh, if something just will ruin your day, avoid it. Fair enough. And I had that recently with watching the amazing new Vince Gilligan series, the first 2 episodes of it, Pluribus. I don't know if you've seen that. I'll try and stay sort of out the way of it, but basically there's a scene in it where lots of people are like fitting, kind of, they're sort of stuck, they're kind of having a seizure. And I know someone who had experience of a family member who sort of has that kind of thing, finds those kind of scenes, because they are used quite a lot in sci-fi and fantasy, sort of people sort of glitching out and things, eyes rolling in the back of their head. They don't like those, they find those very triggering. And I sort of had to implore this friend, get past that bit, because that bit is necessary for then what I think is one of the most interesting, complex, fascinating explorations of what it is to be an individual. And I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I have no idea where this series is going to go. It almost feels like after it, the plot moves really quickly, and it's always ahead of you, and it's absolutely extraordinary. So thank you for reminding me of that. But yeah, there might be some people who are like, oh, I don't know what Pluribus is, and maybe the opening of it is a bit like a zombie thing. Maybe I don't want a zombie thing, and it is a bit of a zombie thing, but it's more complex than that, and it's more interesting, and it's more witty, and it's more funny than that, I think. Yeah, and Rhys Seehorn, who's the star of it, I think is just an absolutely incredible actor. So I would encourage people to see that. It's on Apple TV. And if the first 10, 15 minutes feel like they're not for you, I'd say if you can, plow on through, because I think you need to get through that in order to get to what I think is such a fascinating show. It's been compared to Black Mirror. I'd say it's a bit more. It obfuscates its moral a bit more than Black Mirror. I think Black Mirror says often can fall on like, isn't this technological development bad? Fair enough. That's kind of the show. I think this is going, this thing has happened, and then it sort of leaves it up to you to be like, and what do you think about that? I love it. I'd encourage everyone to see it.
Your ad section now, because you can't be what you can't buy. You've spent eons building your power, cultivating a legion of loyal followers, and designing a fortress with impeccably ominous architecture. And for what? So some farm boy with a magic sword can waltz in and shove a spear up ya? No way! Bringing you the Narrativizer Reflectobot 5000 Romance Edition, a weaponized AI drone capable of bringing you an inner monologue, capable of turning you from an irredeemable Dark Lord into a broody and sensual romantasy hero. Same heinous acts of mass murder, but this time your love for a feisty street rat redeems your character. The Narrativizer Reflectobot 5000 Romance Edition. It's basically a Roomba with a moony-eyed teenage girl strapped to it. Get yours today. Sloppy salutes, lackluster cackling? Are your minions and hench thugs just not cutting it? It being the throats of your enemies? Try splashing them in the face with half a glass of water.
This episode is brought to you by the Universal Translator. Skip over tricky plot obstacles, breathe a sigh of relief that every planet in every galaxy shares concepts easily communicable between each other, no matter how unrealistic that logically sounds, with the Universal Translator. Or maybe just enjoy the fact that sometimes they wouldn't even work, or as we in English call it, Schadenfreude.
And a new novel is out by self-published romantasy maven and online bestseller Dancy Lagarde. The Thorny Crown is Rising, Stars of Night King Part 2 of 7. Is the Part 2 of 7 in the Thorny Crown is Rising series by Dancy Lagarde. In the sin-drenched city of Aphrosis, Moriana is the sexiest sexy assassin in the Assassin's Guild of Sexy Assassins. Owned by the mysterious Obsidian Lord, a magical brand on her thigh binds her will, a constant throbbing reminder that her body is not her own. Her final assignment is a masterpiece of corruption. Infiltrate the inner sanctum of Casimir, the Shadow King of Aphrosis, a man so powerful he is said to command the very darkness and also the hearts of all women. She must not just kill him, but unmake him, shatter his legendary control in the silken prison of his bedchamber before delivering the final fatal kiss with her venomous vagina. Casimir is a ruler forged in nightmare and velvet. He knows the scent of a trap and of a vagina, especially one wrapped in such an intoxicating woman. He recognizes the huntress in Moriana the moment she is offered to him as a tribute. His plan is a game of ultimate depravity. He will accept her gift. He will school her in the arts of pleasure, coaxing the secrets from her lips, not with torture, but with ecstasy. He will make her crave the very chains she seeks to break, and then he will defang her deadly cooch. What follows is a fiery hot conflagration of sexiness and magic and sexiness. Each encounter is a battle for supremacy fought with whispered filth and bruising kisses. In Casimir's world of shadow and sensation, Moriana discovers a terrifying truth. As a cataclysm of ancient hungry magic threatens to devour the city, and they can only save it by having sex, but more meaningfully. To survive, they must cross the final threshold, trusting their enemy with their deepest scars and most forbidden desires. But when the line between performance and passion is erased, the most perilous risk is sexiness. He demanded her body as a weapon. She will claim his soul as her throne. The Thorny Crown is Rising, Stars of Night King Part 2 of 7, available now in all your sex streams and local cafes. And that's your ad section for today. And that brings us to Trope on a Rope. Every week we talk about a trope that we love, or we hate, or we love to hate, or we hate to love, but anyway, we notice it whenever it happens. Tom Neenan, what is your trope on a rope for today?
My trope on a rope today is, and this is fantasy or sci-fi, it happens a lot. Our main character, our protagonist, is falling an impossible, sort of fall. They won't survive. What are they going to do? They examine what they have in their arsenal to stop them from falling. They have in their hand some kind of sharp weapon. They somehow use that sharp weapon to pierce the surface they are falling alongside, to somehow slow their fall. Granted, I know that a lot of people have a lot of very sharp weapons, but the idea that you would be falling... Do we all know the image I'm going for here, which is sort of your character is falling and they have a knife and they stick the knife into a wall and that kind of slows their descent. I don't know how strong you have to be or how sharp something has to be for you to be falling, so there is no... you're not standing anywhere. You've got no leverage whatsoever.
Yeah, you're not pushing yourself away from the wall with the point of the knife. The knife is going straight into the wall.
Yeah.
And then it's sharp enough to cut into the wall, but it's not an ion blade, so it's not just falling through the wall.
No. Because from what I understand, a lightsaber, that won't work on a lightsaber, because a lightsaber is just will cut through everything. This is something where you can stick it in, somehow you stick it in the wall, you have the force to stick it in the wall, you're falling, but then it does slow your descent. And eventually, I guess, become like a foothold or something, or a handhold. I don't know where that's meant to work. I think it maybe started with like pirate films where, like, if you're falling down the sail, you might get a dagger and then stick it in a sail, which makes sense because that is cloth. And I can sort of buy the physics of that. But I've seen it happen to trees. I've seen it happen to the edge of stone castles. I've seen it happen to actual living creatures a lot of the time. If there's like a massive creature, someone might leap on it with arms and then slow their descent. So... yeah, I don't know how that's particularly meant to work. I kind of like it whenever it happens, but it also takes me out the film. So that is my trope on a rope, whatever you'd call that. Descent, slowing, weapon piercing.
Improvised crampons
Yeah, exactly.
deployed at speed.
Yeah.
My trope on a rope for this week is where someone gets slapped or punched on this side of the face, and then they come up like this,
Mm.
and they wipe a split lip that happens to be on this side of their lip. It's a split lip, but not a fat lip, and they don't spend the rest of the scene talking like this. But it's particularly the sort of wiping it like you've just got quite a severe injury to your mouth. I think the last thing you're gonna do is like bleh. But yeah, it's sort of very cinematic, the sort of dragging yourself back sort of
Mhm.
up and into the frame with but it yeah, the physics of it never quite strike me as very convincing. So that's my trope on a rope for this week.
It's also helpful for the old censors, because it there is blood, but I understand that, with various films and things are graded by the amount of bloody content, and it shows someone is injured, and you can just have a tiny little fleck of blood on your finger or on your lip, but it's not gratuitously bloody, but it just sort of shows that there are stakes and that blood has been shed without actually sort of showing too much bloodshed. So yes, I do like that one. It's very handy.
Yeah, exactly. It's very back of handy.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our subgenre deep dive for this week. Villain heroes. Ever since the age of Romulus and Remus, where Rome got named after the one who won, we have been interested in the villain as hero. I'm interested, as I was saying, I was talking about Flashman and Molesworth as integral kind of anti-hero borderline villains who end up getting the say in things. A few people recommended in the comments section over on the Blue Sky and in my Patreon, Ender Wiggin in Ender's Game, who is sort of a spoiler, but is revealed to be essentially the villain all along, despite the fact that he's the hero of the narrative. And kind of going back on that into to kind of boy conquerors, Paul Atreides starts a galactic jihad. He's sort of his family is the victim of unjust oppression, but the things that he does are not good. Like he's not exactly a hero if you think about the results of his actions and the final consequences of what he's done. He's not ushering in a new age of enlightenment. He's doing the thing that the Bene Gesserit all do, which is like thinking 18,000 steps ahead to the longest, end of the means that you're justifying and justifying really bad behavior before that. So I think he's quite a good example of somebody who is presented as a hero but is actually a villain. Do you have any recommendations?
There are sort of smaller versions of this. There's microcosm versions of this. I've seen it happen with, for instance, in the Jurassic Park franchise, they have sort of you can have an icon, and what I think sometimes happens is an icon becomes a hero. So, for instance, the T-Rex in Jurassic Park arguably isn't a villain, is just like doesn't have any malevolence, but is obviously an antagonist and is an obstacle to overcome, which is this massive set of jaws that wants to eat you, which actually sort of becomes in Jurassic World becomes sort of the hero and sort of saves them in a way. Similarly, there's people like characters like Freddy Krueger, who if you chart them from when they started, Freddy Krueger is canonically a zombie paedophile. Sorry to be blunt, but sort of as time goes on and as people sort of get to know, as the Funko Popification of like certain characters softens their edges and everything else, they become the hero. Chucky from the Child's Play franchise is very much the hero of some of those later films, despite definitely being the antagonist of the first two, being the villain of the first two, because they become the icon, and they become more recognizable and more sort of the sell of the film than whoever, than the child who plays the child in those films.
That is a really interesting point and sort of branches off into something I was thinking about today, which is, the nature
Mm.
of people now on television realizing that you don't need to be likable, you just need to be noticeable and then you become iconic.
Mm.
Really bad behavior on things like reality television programs, like truly like unpleasant behavior, can be reframed as iconic by virtue of kind of being in the screen. There's a question as to whether you can ever make a truly anti-war film, because after things like Full Metal
Mhm.
Jacket or Apocalypse Now or Saving Private Ryan, there was a massive uptick in people signing up for duty, despite those being very explicitly anti-war films, because by turning a camera onto something, you make it beautiful or glamorous or, as you say, iconic. So these villain figures, if they are
Mhm.
sufficiently striking for the camera to pay attention to them, and I'm not going to go into politics here, but this is one of the ways in which people
Mm.
can just get screen time by any means necessary. And as long as they've got attention, the attention of the camera functionally turns whatever you're doing into iconography and makes you iconic.
Possibly the oddest example of this I've found, and this person still retains their kind of antagonist status, but when you make someone the center of a narrative, you imbue some kind of empathy or something onto that character, which makes them, like you say, attractive, or like, if you see anything from their perspective. Um, and it's your neck of the woods. It's the Wolf Creek franchise. Wolf Creek was a sort of a very good horror film, that sort of the early noughties, and I think it sparked like 2 film sequels and a TV series. The thing is, Wolf Creek, while the first one is about some people who get lost in the bush and get abducted by this psychotic. I don't know what the correct term would be for him, but sort of a psychotic Australian man. That suddenly, when he's suddenly the star of the second film, and then also the reason people are tuning in for the TV series, you don't redeem him. He's still doing exactly what he did in the first film, which is torturing people and killing people. But somehow, when the narrative requires you to want him to carry on doing that, because the second he doesn't, the TV show ends, which is the thing that you want to happen. So you end up sort of oddly complicit in enjoying what they are doing. I don't know. I found that one an interesting one, because obviously then at the end of the first one, you want this horrible person to be killed and to be offed, but then because they wanted a second series, he survives and he's there, and it's sort of both, oh, there's going to be a second series of that show I liked, yay, but also that person who we've been told is malevolent, evil, and shouldn't exist in this world continues to be malevolent and evil. So are they is it a hero? Not really, but it is confusing.
Well, similarly, things like Dexter or Hannibal, where the central
Hmm.
character is a mass murderer, and particularly in Hannibal, there was a sort of a weird level of fandom that rose up about the relationship between the two lead male characters, where people are like, "Oh, their chemistry is so powerful and intense," and that's that again, this kind of
Hmm.
slightly romanticy thing, where awful behavior is redeemed by charm or by liking one person. And I think that's a kind of a spin-off of
Mm.
something that is done quite badly in a lot of Hollywood movies, where you will save one person instead of the 1,000 people, because we care about the one person instead of the
Yes.
1,000 people, which is sort of arguably very much the wrong choice, just because she happens to be like a cute girl in plaids.
Hmm.
That sort of trolley problem is always, in movies at least, presented as the correct mathematics, because they're all extras and this one has has personhood. And so
Mm.
of course you're always going to choose the one over the many, or refuse to make the choice, or whatever it happens to
Mm.
be. So yeah, I feel like these things are actually connected in this
Mhm.
way. Which brings us to the minds of this podcast. You know that every week we delve into our past and something that we used to enjoy, but maybe do not enjoy so much anymore. Or if we go back, we look at it, it makes us feel a little bit. Tom Neenan, have you got anything to dig up from the minds of this week?
Well, why don't we jump straight on from what we were talking about? I think this is all sort of thematically linked. Have you ever seen the film Wanted?
I have, yes.
So Basically, I think that is the distillation of what you were talking about, which is extras dying is fine as long as the sexy heroes survive. So the film, is it the Angelina Jolie film Wanted?
Yes, with James McAvoy.
Yes, yeah, they do a bizarre thing where they pretend that you can twist a bullet around a person, which you can't do, and I'm sure people died as a result of them just putting that out there.
And that's what takes it into the realms of fantasy, which is why our podcast is allowed to talk about it, because it's clearly magic.
Exactly. Aren't there also looms? Isn't there a thing about like the loom of life or something from memory? Like it is. It's built on fantasy premises, definitely. It's sort of everyone's sort of in tune in this kind of neurological kind of connection way. But anyway, the ending of that film is that they're all trying to stop some nebulous end of the world thing. But what they end up doing, basically, our heroes, our antagonists, end up killing a train full of people. And I get that it's meant to be an edgy film, but I think it leaves you feeling quite distasteful because all these people are seen as expendable. Basically you, the viewer, the person who's watching this, who is not the main character of this film, they go, look, there's probably, I think, about 500 people die in this climax where they kind of derail a Eurostar or something, and it just leaves a bit of a nasty taste in the mouth. The film I was just talking about, Predator Badlands, gets away from this because all of the creatures that are being massacred who are humanoid are synthetic. So, and they are not treated, they're all clones. They're not treated as like having any kind of individual agency or something. So you can kind of allow that. Whereas this is very much going, if you are a commuter on a train and Angelina Jolie needs to stop some nebulous existential threat that you don't quite understand, you are fair game. Just rewatching it recently and speaking to your point about wherever the camera's pointing, that's what the hero is. It just feels a bit like, hopefully, yeah, it just leaves you feeling a bit sad, really. And that's not how you want to feel when you're watching an action film with Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy. Come on, guys.
No, two of the best sort of actiony modern characters, and I think that is very true. I have two minds of for this week. One was
Mm-hmm.
recommended in the comment section, which is the Thomas Covenant books, in which early in the first book of the series he sexually assaults a teenage girl, and the resulting daughter then later has an Electra complex for him. It is one of those books where it fits the genre because he's always talking about how he's not a hero, and the books aren't necessarily meant to, celebrate or valorize his actions, but there's certainly no kind of proportionate sense of how that bit is. And it is sort of a little bit bad guy against a worse guy, but when you're doing this kind of mathematics of bad guy versus worst guy, then you do tend to sort of sympathize with the bad guy. It's also just, I don't think it has aged well, people seem to be saying. I don't remember it particularly well, but I was thinking of going back and reading it, and now I'm thinking, I won't. I don't think I will go back to it. And my other minds of is more of a trope on a rope, but it is an trope on a rope, which is every time I have seen a massive, like, whatever it is, chase, fight, shoot 'em up, break in, heist sequence, and they get to the big baddie and then they don't kill him because it would be morally wrong to
Mm-hmm.
kill him when they have just murdered, like, 20 to 500 people in the process of getting to
Yeah.
him to do the revenge, which was the whole point of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's just enormous quantities of collateral damage. But when they're face to face with the other character that has anything more than two dimensions, all of a sudden it's a moral quandary as to whether they should be, it would be wrong. You'll make you just as bad as him. And you're like, wait a minute, didn't you just garrot the guards? So I think as a trope on a rope, it is also like, ugh.
We all have in our minds when we're reading a book or we're watching any kind of media, if there is an antagonist who is particularly awful or not particularly awful, we all have like a little gauge in our minds of like what comeuppance, what what punishment ideally we would want dealt to this person. And I think what made Game of Thrones such an engaging show and series of books is they always tended to mete out punishments that fit the crime quite effectively. I think in those books, always very satisfying, and it makes you feel like there is a bit of justice in the world. And occasionally something comes along where a character is either overly punished for a minor thing, and we feel that's almost too we kind of lost that kind of justice, and we don't like it, and it sits somewhere slightly wrong. This is a very bizarre example. Technically, I guess it fits in the Realms Unknown genre, is the Flintstones movie. That's right, we're going there, guys. Where Carl McLaughlin's character, who I think is like a sort of a bit of a ruthless capitalist, but ultimately just sort of a bit of an idiot, is killed at the end. And it sort of feels like a betrayal of the genre that someone in a Flintstones movie should die. And it kind of, sometimes you kind of go, oh, and it sort of draws you up short. So I completely get that, the kind of the justice disparity that you sometimes get in media, especially sort of sci-fi and fantasy media.
Yeah, it's a real tragedy. And with our villains as heroes theme of the week, as we wrap up Brave Adventurer, take the cautious recommendation of cute big-eyed best friend Tom Neenan and go see Predator Badlands for a CGI-heavy entry-level film of the franchise, maybe one if you have kids of 12 or thereabouts to go and enjoy together. And check out Vince Gilligan's new post-apocalyptic sci-fi show Pluribus, where Rhea Seehorn's character is a cynical woman living in a world where everyone is happy. May not be a villain story, but Vince Gilligan's name at least contains all the letters of villain. And whether it's Ender Wiggin from Ender's Game, Paul Atreides from the Dune universe, or Captain Hook, there's a whole world of villains as heroes to explore and enjoy. Pull up your reading and watch lists and head to the Realms Unknown Blue Sky or my Patreon. Take a deep dive into all the great recommendations for our listeners. If this sounds like your genre, there will be dozens more recommendations in this genre over there at the Blue Sky or on my Patreon, where you could sign up for free. And if you have one of your own recommendations, chuck it in there. Or if you disagree with any of ours, feel free to let us know at realmsunknown at thebuglepodcast.com. Tom Neenan, have you got anything to plug?
I keep posted on my Blue Sky, TP Neenan on Blue Sky, or at TP Neenan on Instagram. I'm sort of putting together the first sort of fledgling ideas for a new live show, and I'll probably be doing some work in progresses sort of in and around London. If you fancy coming to see those, once I always sort of have art and things to sell either on Etsy or just go to my Instagram, and I'll always link to things there at TP Neenan. If you fancy that, I'd say that we probably have about 2 weeks left of if anyone wants to commission any art for like a Christmas present or something, that it could conceivably sort of be finished and get to you in time for Christmas and be dry, the paint is dry. So I'd say sort of in the next 2 weeks, if you'd like to, the schedules are filling up, so getting quick if there's a particular person in your life that you would like a little very affordable painting of, then do let me know via my Instagram at TP Neenan.
TP Neenan. You can join my New Year's reboot between Christmas and my birthday. I always think of it as the gooch of the year. I'd run a creative reboot if you want to get into a good practice for your creativity in the next year, rather than just doing a New Year's resolution. This is like getting you into the habits in a very active day-to-day way. It's a 10-day course. You can sign up over at my Patreon. The form is there. You get half price if you are a Patreon subscriber, but otherwise you can just pay the normal amount and come join me to get into the groove for the new year. I always think it's quite good to sort of refresh your habits, hit the reset button, and that is the time of year to do it. It's also a great Christmas present to get to somebody who is being creative or wants to be more creative than they are. Get into good habits there. Also, the audiobook for A Passion for Passion is available on all audio platforms that you might be subscribed to, so head over there and download that, because it is the only way I will get paid any money for all the work I did on that book. That's A Passion for Passion on all of your audiobook downloading possibilities. This is a Bugle Bugle podcast and Alice Fraser production. Your editor is Pet Hunter, your executive producer is Chris Skinner, and I'll talk to you again next week.